Let's take a moment to think about energy, not the kind that comes from a cup of coffee or a good night's sleep, but the type that flows quietly inside you, regulating how your cells talk to one another, how your metabolism functions, and how clearly your mind perceives the world. That internal spark, the one that determines your body's rhythm, is often governed by a small butterfly-shaped gland in your neck, the thyroid. And what fuels this essential organ more than anything else? Iodine. Now, iodine might sound like a throwback nutrient, something we learned about in school, a word printed on old salt containers, but its role in your health couldn't be more modern or more critical. You see, iodine isn't just important for the thyroid, it is the activator. Without it, the thyroid simply cannot manufacture the hormones T3 and T4, which affect every cell in your body. That's not hyperbole, that's biology. In our current health culture, we often look for the next trendy superfood or lab-designed supplement, overlooking the ancient simplicity of natural foundational nutrients. Iodine is one of those essentials, one that many of us are now unknowingly missing. You might be surprised to learn that iodine deficiency is re-emerging even in developed countries, particularly among women. The reasons are subtle but profound. Many have shifted away from iodized salt in favor of sea salt or Himalayan pink salt, which may have trace minerals, yes, but often lack sufficient iodine. Others follow restrictive diets that exclude dairy, seafood, or eggs, all rich sources of iodine. And when iodine disappears, the symptoms don't scream, they whisper. You don't wake up one day with a neon sign saying, thyroid issue. What happens instead is a slow fade, a subtle tiredness that coffee can't fix, a persistent coldness in your hands and feet, even in the summer, a mental fog that makes focusing feel like lifting weights, a weight gain that defies calorie counts or willpower. It's insidious. It's quiet. And because it doesn't come with an immediate crisis, it often gets dismissed as aging or stress. But this isn't just a physical issue. It's an emotional and even philosophical one. When your thyroid slows down, so does your capacity to show up fully in your life. You begin to doubt your motivation. You second guess your energy, your enthusiasm. And over time, that creates a psychological fatigue that becomes far more damaging than the physical symptoms. You feel like a shadow of yourself. And because it happens so gradually, you forget what vibrant even felt like. Let's talk solutions. Seaweed, particularly varieties like kelp or nori, is one of the richest natural sources of iodine. A single sheet of nori can provide more than your daily requirement. But you don't need to become a sushi chef overnight. Small, intentional additions matter. Iodized salt used sensibly is another easy fix. Just a quarter teaspoon a day can restore what's missing. Eggs, yogurt, and certain types of fish like cod also deliver solid iodine doses, especially when consumed regularly. Still, knowledge isn't the end goal. Awareness is. Iodine deficiency doesn't often lead to immediate disaster. It leads to slow decline. And that's why it gets missed. Doctors might not test for it until it becomes severe. But you don't have to wait for your lab results to tell you what your body's been trying to say for months. If you felt chronically depleted, emotionally dulled, or inexplicably sluggish despite lifestyle improvements, you owe it to yourself to look deeper. And let's be honest, this isn't just about iodine. This is about reclaiming attention to the foundational details. In an age where we chase complexity, it's humbling to realize that our health can falter from the absence of something so simple. It reminds us that healing isn't always about adding more. It's about restoring balance. It's about listening to ancient biological truths with modern ears. The thyroid is a quiet organ, but its message is loud once you start listening. And iodine is its voice. So if there's one small change you can make tonight, just one, let it be this: add back what your body once had in abundance. Let iodine become your ally again. Because when the thyroid thrives, so does your energy, your mental clarity, and your inner confidence. Don't let something so fundamental go unnoticed. Don't confuse slow with safe. True energy doesn't come in bursts. It flows from a body that's nourished from the inside out. Reclaim that flow. Reignite that spark. Start with iodine. Let's talk about something that many people overlook when it comes to thyroid health, something so foundational yet so underappreciated that its absence can quietly erode your entire metabolic system. I'm talking about selenium. Yes, selenium, a trace mineral that your body only needs in micrograms, Yet its impact on your thyroid, and by extension your energy, mood, and long-term health is massive. The thyroid isn't just a hormone-producing factory. It's a biochemical orchestra, and selenium is one of its master conductors. While iodine helps the thyroid produce its hormones, selenium ensures those hormones are converted into their active forms. Without enough selenium, your body may produce thyroid hormones, but it won't be able to use them efficiently. It's like having fuel in your car, but no ignition key. You have the resources, but you can't start the engine. There's also another layer to selenium's importance. The thyroid is an incredibly active gland metabolically. It produces hormones that affect almost every organ in your body. And because it works so hard, it generates a lot of oxidative stress. Selenium, through its role in the enzyme glutathione peroxidase, neutralizes this stress. It protects the thyroid from inflammation and cellular damage. In other words, selenium is both a facilitator and a shield. It helps your thyroid do its job while also defending it from harm. Now here's the problem. Most people have no idea whether they're getting enough selenium. And the truth is, depending on where your food is grown, you might not be. Selenium levels in soil vary widely, which means that the same food grown in one region could be rich in selenium, while in another, it could be nearly devoid of it. That means you can't always rely on labels or even healthy eating patterns. You have to be intentional. The foods that naturally contain selenium are surprisingly accessible. Brazil nuts, for example, are one of the richest sources. Just 1 or 2 a day can give you all the selenium you need. But beyond that, you'll find it in foods like sardines, tuna, eggs, sunflower seeds, and mushrooms. The trick isn't necessarily about eating large quantities. It's about being consistent and deliberate with what you choose to include in your diet. What makes this conversation even more crucial is the link between selenium deficiency and autoimmune thyroid conditions like Hashimoto's thyroiditis. In these cases, the immune system mistakenly attacks the thyroid gland, leading to chronic inflammation and a gradual decline in function. Research has shown that selenium can reduce thyroid antibodies and slow the progression of such diseases. So we're not just talking about prevention, we're talking about halting a potential downward spiral. But let's step back for a moment. Let's think about what this really means. Philosophically, we often look for strength in big things, high-powered treatments, dramatic interventions, complex plans. But sometimes strength lives in the small, quiet things. A trace mineral, a daily food choice, a nut eaten in mindfulness. These tiny acts have ripple effects far beyond what we can see. They represent a kind of reverence for the body, a recognition that healing isn't always loud or immediate. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it begins at the molecular level. Selenium invites us to return to the basics. It reminds us that the body isn't just a machine to be fixed. It's a system to be supported. And support doesn't always require extreme measures. It requires awareness, attention, careful nourishment. Now imagine the psychological difference when your thyroid begins to function optimally again. You're no longer fighting through fatigue that doesn't respond to rest. You're no longer battling that brain fog that makes even simple tasks feel monumental. You begin to feel like yourself again, and not the you. That's simply surviving, but the one that's thriving, leaning into life with clarity, steadiness, and purpose. This isn't about finding a miracle cure. It's about embracing a miracle truth. Your body wants to heal. It's trying to speak to you through the symptoms you feel. And when you give it what it needs, when you restore the missing pieces, it responds. It doesn't just function, it flourishes. So if you're looking for a small, actionable step toward better thyroid health, start with selenium. Don't overlook it. Don't underestimate it. Let it be the quiet hero of your healing journey. 1 Brazil nut a day, 1 deliberate choice. 1 signal to your body that you're listening, that you're supporting it, and that you're ready to reclaim the energy and balance that's been waiting underneath the surface all along. Sometimes the smallest nutrients create the greatest shifts. Let that truth guide you. Let's talk about iodine, a mineral that's so vital to thyroid health that without it, the entire hormonal symphony of your body begins to collapse. Now, we often think of iodine as something we just get enough of automatically. After all, it's in our salt, right? But the truth is far more complex and frankly more alarming. Many people, especially those trying to eat clean or reduce sodium intake, are unknowingly cutting iodine from their diets. And the thyroid, which absolutely depends on it to make hormones, pays the price. The thyroid uses iodine like a construction worker uses bricks. Every molecule of T3 and T4, the thyroid hormones that regulate your metabolism, brain development, heart rate, and body temperature, contains iodine. It's literally the foundational material of thyroid hormones. No iodine, no hormones. And no hormones means your body can't manage energy, growth, or even mood. That's not an exaggeration. That's biochemistry. But what's fascinating and tragic is how we've created an environment where iodine deficiency is quietly on the rise again. Decades ago, iodine deficiency was common, so governments began adding it to table salt, and for a while, that worked. But now, with the popularity of sea salts, Himalayan salts, low sodium diets, and processed foods that don't use iodized salt, iodine intake is slipping through the cracks. Add to that soil depletion and modern farming practices that strip minerals from the earth, and you have a perfect storm for deficiency. And it's not just about the physical effects. Psychologically, iodine deficiency can take a deep toll. When thyroid function drops, the mind slows, you start feeling foggy, depressed, disconnected from yourself. It's easy to misdiagnose it as burnout, anxiety, or aging. But often, the body is simply begging for the raw material it needs to wake up the brain, re-energize the cells, and get things moving again. And yet, because we've been conditioned to treat symptoms in isolation, we rarely trace them back to the thyroid or to something as basic as iodine. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. In places where iodine deficiency becomes chronic, we don't just see goiters or sluggish thyroid function. We start to see cognitive decline. Especially in children and seniors, iodine is critical for brain health. For developing brains, iodine is the difference between normal growth and developmental delays. For aging brains, it's a barrier against mental fog, memory issues, and even dementia. When the thyroid is underperforming due to iodine shortage, it's not just metabolism that suffers, it's cognition, clarity, and identity. The good news is that iodine is incredibly easy to incorporate when you know where to look. Seaweed is nature's richest source, particularly varieties like kelp, nori, and wakame. Just a few sheets of seaweed a week can restore your iodine levels. But for those who can't tolerate or access seaweed iodine, rich foods include fish like cod and tuna, dairy products, eggs, and yes, iodized salt, if it's used with awareness, not excess. What matters most here is intentionality. Are you feeding your thyroid what it needs to serve you? Are you giving your brain the raw materials to stay sharp, focused, and resilient? The answers lie not in expensive treatments or high-tech scans, but in small daily choices. What you eat, what you avoid, and how consciously you nourish your body's most sensitive hormonal hub. And let's not forget the deeper message. Iodine isn't just a mineral. It's a metaphor, a symbol of how something so tiny, so invisible can have a profound impact. It's a reminder that health doesn't always hinge on major events or grand gestures. Sometimes it comes down to trace elements like iodine, quietly building the structure of our well-being from the inside out. When you look at your life, your energy, your mental sharpness, your emotional resilience, and something feels off, pause before rushing to blame age or stress. Ask yourself instead, am I giving my thyroid what it needs to guide me through life's transitions? Am I listening to what my body is really asking for? The thyroid doesn't scream, it whispers. And iodine is its first language. So start with awareness. Reintroduce this essential mineral with respect. Because when your thyroid has the iodine it needs, your entire life begins to move in rhythm again. Energy flows. Thoughts become clear. The heaviness lifts. You don't just survive your day. You move through it with vitality, intention, and a quiet confidence that your body is finally being heard. The smallest nutrients often carry the largest truths. Let iodine teach you that healing can begin in the most overlooked places, and that sometimes reclaiming your health means simply remembering what your body was missing all along. Let's take a moment to talk about something that most people never associate with thyroid health, yet it plays a critical role in your hormonal balance, mental clarity, and overall energy levels: antioxidants. When we hear the word antioxidants, our minds often go to skin health, anti-aging, or heart protection. And yes, those are all valid. But few people realize just how deeply antioxidants are tied to your thyroid's ability to function properly, especially in a world full of environmental toxins. processed food, and chronic stress. Here's the reality: your thyroid is an incredibly delicate organ. It's small, yes, but it's also highly reactive. It's like a sensitive tuning fork that vibrates with everything happening around and inside you. Pollution, heavy metals, pesticides, emotional distress, and even internal inflammation. All of these can disrupt thyroid hormone production. And guess what gets hit first and hardest in this invisible war? Your cells. They become oxidized. They begin to break down under the pressure. And if your thyroid is already low on reserves or working overtime, oxidative stress becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back. This is why antioxidants are more than just a trend or a label slapped on superfood packaging. They are your thyroid's natural defense system. Antioxidants like selenium, vitamin C, vitamin E, and zinc act like shields. They neutralize the free radicals that cause cellular damage. They protect the thyroid tissue itself from inflammation. And perhaps most importantly, they help regulate the autoimmune processes that underlie many of today's most misunderstood thyroid disorders, especially Hashimoto's thyroiditis and Graves' disease. You see, many thyroid conditions are not just mechanical problems, they're autoimmune in nature. The immune system starts attacking the thyroid, mistaking it for an invader. But what triggers that attack? In many cases, it's chronic oxidative stress left unchecked, unbalanced, and untreated. Antioxidants then are not just about fighting aging. They are about calming the immune system, resetting its perception, and teaching the body to protect rather than destroy its own vital organs. Let's take selenium as an example. This trace mineral is required for the conversion of T4 into the active hormone T3, but it's also a powerful antioxidant. It helps reduce thyroid inflammation and lowers the risk of autoimmune flare-ups. Brazil nuts are one of the richest natural sources, and eating just 1 or 2 a day can meet your daily requirement. But that small act, conscious, intentional, can change your energy, your mood, and your metabolism over time. Then there's vitamin C. You may think of it as the common cold fighter, but in truth, it's a detox hero. It supports the adrenal glands, which are closely tied to thyroid health, and it helps flush out heavy metals like mercury that can interfere with thyroid function. Citrus fruits, bell peppers, and dark leafy greens are more than just sides on your plate. They are quiet allies in the daily maintenance of hormonal stability. Zinc is another underrated hero. Without enough zinc, the body struggles to produce and regulate thyroid hormones. Zinc also plays a role in neurotransmitter balance, helping ease the depression and cognitive fog that so often accompany hypothyroidism. Foods like pumpkin seeds, lentils, and chickpeas are small but mighty sources of this mineral, and they belong on the plate of anyone looking to nourish the thyroid at a cellular level. And let's not forget vitamin E, especially powerful in combating the cumulative stress of environmental toxins and aging. Found in nuts, seeds, and healthy oils, vitamin E helps protect the delicate membranes of thyroid cells. It's like moisturizing the internal machinery so that everything runs more smoothly, more efficiently. Now, let's talk philosophy for a moment. In life, there are forces that build and forces that destroy. There are toxins and there are tonics. The thyroid is a reflection of how we navigate these forces, how we absorb stress, how we respond to pressure, and how we recover from damage. Antioxidants represent that recovery. They are the quiet builders, the subtle architects of restoration. And when we include them in our diets consistently, we are not just making a nutritional choice. We are making a psychological statement. We are choosing protection. We are choosing to heal rather than deteriorate. So ask yourself, what side of that equation are you living on? Is your diet loaded with healing forces, or are you quietly allowing oxidative stress to chip away at your foundation? You don't need dramatic changes to start protecting your thyroid. You need consistent, mindful nourishment, a handful of berries, a few Brazil nuts, a colorful plate of greens. These aren't just meals. They are medicine. They are messages to your body that say, I see you, I care for you, I protect you. When we support the thyroid with antioxidants, we are giving it the tools it needs to not just survive, but thrive quietly, steadily, and powerfully. So let the message be simple and strong. Protection begins with intention. And your thyroid is worth protecting.